The mind is not a sanctuary of reason. It is a battlefield where desire wages war against calculation, and the future bleeds beneath the weight of every impulse disguised as conviction. To think clearly is not to think purely. It is to think without illusion. Clarity is not the absence of emotion, it is the mastery of it. Every ruler who fell believed he saw the truth. Every survivor knew he saw only fragments, and learned to act before the fragments changed. A man's mind is his first territory. He who cannot govern it will be governed by those who can. The noise of the world, the opinions, the outrage, the praise, these are weapons aimed not at your body, but at your judgment. The first act of leadership, therefore, is silence, for in silence, the false voices die, and only necessity speaks. Do not ask what is right, ask what is effective. Morality without strategy is impotence. Strategy without morality is chaos. The wise ruler learns to wield both to make virtue serve purpose, and purpose justify virtue. In this lies the art of thinking clearly, to distinguish the good that strengthens power from the good that destroys it. To make better decisions, one must first learn the anatomy of error. Most men do not choose wrongly because they are foolish, but because they are hurried, impatient to appear decisive, terrified to seem unsure. Yet, the illusion of certainty has ruined more leaders than hesitation ever did. The mind that cannot tolerate doubt is already enslaved to it. Clarity demands distance. Never decide in the heat of admiration or anger. Emotion is a fog, and in fog, the smallest shadow becomes a threat. Step back. Observe yourself as you would an enemy. Dissect your own motives before they betray you. The ruler who understands his weaknesses has fewer of them. Every decision is an act of war against chaos. You command not soldiers, but consequences, and consequences obey no loyalty except truth. They expose every hidden intention, every lie told to oneself. You cannot negotiate with reality. You can only anticipate it. The clear thinker studies people, not ideals. For men act according to necessity, not nobility. They will love you when it costs them nothing, and betray you when it serves their interest. To rely on their loyalty is to rely on the wind. Better to rely on the balance of fear and benefit, the two currents that truly move human hearts. Do not confuse kindness with clarity. The generous ruler who gives without restraint soon finds himself despised, not loved. Men value what they earn, not what they are handed. Likewise, the leader who forgives without consequence teaches others that his mercy is weakness. True clarity knows when to forgive and when to make an example. To think clearly is also to see time as a weapon. The impatient mind acts too soon and loses leverage. The cowardly mind acts too late and loses opportunity. The wise ruler measures the tempo of events, neither rushing nor delaying, but striking when necessity ripens into inevitability. Never confuse movement with progress. Many act to feel alive, to drown the fear of stillness. But stillness is power. The hunter who waits in silence sees farther than the one who runs in panic. The ruler who can wait without anxiety controls not only his enemies, but his fate. Clarity also requires betrayal not of others, but of illusions. The illusion that people will understand you. The illusion that the world is fair. The illusion that truth alone triumphs. These are poisons sweetened by idealism. Drink too deeply, and your reason drowns in sentiment. Learn to see people not as they should be, but as they are. Most hide behind masks of morality, loyalty, or love. The clear thinker sees the machinery beneath vanity, fear, desire, survival. He manipulates appearances not to deceive, but to direct. The world is theater, and leadership is stagecraft. The truth matters, but only when it can be believed. To decide well is to choose between evils. The child seeks the good. The ruler chooses the necessary. In politics, as in life, perfection is paralysis. Every option bleeds. The question is not which choice is pure, but which price you can afford to pay. Understand this. Decisions are not judged by intentions, but by outcomes. The world forgives cruelty that succeeds and crucifies virtue that fails. Therefore, never mistake applause for approval or silence for safety. The moment you stop calculating, The game calculates you. Clarity is not the luxury of the righteous. It is the discipline of the strong. To see clearly, one must accept the ugliness of what is seen, the greed, the fear, the fragility of the human heart. Only when you cease demanding beauty from reality can you begin to command it. Do not seek clarity in peace. Seek it in conflict, for when comfort disappears, illusion follows. The battlefield teaches what philosophy conceals, that men are not moved by truth, but by advantage, not by loyalty, but by fear, not by reason, but by desire. He who denies this remains a dreamer. He who accepts it becomes a ruler. Every decision you make builds the architecture of your fate. Each hesitation, each indulgence, each compromise of principle, a brick laid in the palace of your consequence. Think clearly, not only for today, but for the echoes that will follow when your name no longer does. To think clearly is to rule your own mind before you rule others. It is to see power not as privilege, but as burden of fire that consumes the weak and refines the wise. And when the time comes to decide, remember, it is not courage that guides a ruler, but necessity. Think clearly, see coldly, act decisively. The rest is noise. Clarity is not inherited. It is forged in failure, in humiliation, in the quiet moments when illusion dies and nothing remains but necessity. The man who has never been deceived by his own optimism cannot yet think clearly. For every ruler is first a victim of himself. He learns truth only after being betrayed by what he wished were true. That is the price of understanding. Wisdom is not a crown, it is a scar. The clearer your mind becomes, the lonelier your position grows. For to see things as they are is to stand apart from those who still need comforting lies. You will begin to notice how easily men trade truth for reassurance, how they mistake motion for progress, morality for strength, popularity for authority. And when you speak, they will hear arrogance where there is only accuracy. To think clearly is to become foreign in your own city. Yet that isolation is not a curse. It is a signal that your vision is no longer blurred by the herd's emotion. There will come a day when you must decide between pleasing others and preserving judgment. Choose judgment. The world will scorn you when you refuse its delusions, but it will respect you when its delusions collapse. The crowd praises the dreamer in peace, but seeks the realist in crisis. To think clearly, you must be willing to be hated in the moment and proven right in the aftermath. That is the cruel arithmetic of leadership. The art of decision lies not in knowing everything, but in discerning what can be ignored. Weak minds chase every piece of information, every opinion, every whisper of doubt. Strong minds filter. They discard noise and extract signal. They know that clarity is not built from abundance, but from selection. To rule the mind is to decide what deserves attention and what deserves to be erased. The ruler who tries to see everything sees nothing. There is also danger in too much reflection. The overthinking mind becomes a court with no verdict. Doubt becomes its own form of cowardice, disguised as intellect. Every decision requires a moment when thought must die and will must act. The man who waits for perfect certainty is already defeated by time. To think clearly is to know when to stop thinking. Do not fear making mistakes. Fear refusing to learn from them. The ruler who hides from error becomes a prisoner of appearance. The one who studies his failures as a general studies maps will convert humiliation into strategy. Every misstep reveals where your power leaks. Every betrayal exposes where you trusted too soon. The mind that reflects without resentment refines itself into steel. Clarity is not emotionless. It feels deeply, but acts selectively. To be clear-headed is not to be cold-hearted. It is to direct emotion toward purpose. Anger can drive justice. Fear can sharpen vigilance. Desire can fuel vision. But when these instincts take command, clarity dies. They are servants, not kings. A ruler who becomes the slave of his feelings loses his state long before he loses his throne. Remember that every environment conspires to corrupt perception. Flattery blinds, praise softens, familiarity dulls caution. That is why rulers fall not by external attack, but by internal comfort. When everything seems secure, suspicion must awaken. When loyalty seems certain, vigilance must not sleep. To think clearly, one must distrust ease. Truth hides in discomfort. Illusion thrives in pleasure. You must also study the art of deception, not to become a liar, but to recognize how easily others lie. Men will wrap ambition in virtue, greed in loyalty, treachery in necessity. The clear mind sees through ornament. It listens not to what is said, but to what is omitted. It reads intent beneath gesture, calculation beneath emotion. This is the X-ray vision of politics, to see men not as they appear, but as they operate. The world rewards those who understand this hidden layer of human nature. Influence does not belong to the loud, but to the lucid. To those who can calculate without panic, adapt without compromise, and command without appearing to. Such men need no crown to rule, for their clarity gives them power invisible yet absolute. They move through chaos as if it were geometry, seeing angles where others see accidents. To make better decisions, learn the rhythm of consequence. Every act creates a chain reaction not of morality, but of interests. Before you speak, consider not what you intend, but what others will infer. Before you act, calculate not the momentary victory, but the ripples it sets in motion. For every gain carries a cost, and every cost conceals a lesson. The clear thinker balances both without sentiment. There is no neutrality in decision-making. To delay is to decide for decay. To remain silent is to empower the loudest fool. The ruler who refuses to act out of fear of error guarantees the greater error of stagnation. Power respects movement. The world bends to those who define its direction before others do. To think clearly is not to think endlessly. It is to act with precision, then adjust without pride. And understand this, the mind cannot remain clear if the heart is enslaved by ego. Pride blinds faster than ignorance. The moment you begin to believe you are infallible, your enemies no longer need to defeat you. You will destroy yourself through overconfidence. Clarity demands humility, not weakness, but awareness of one's limits. The ruler who knows his flaws rules longer than the one who denies them. In the end, clarity is the truest form of power, for it cannot be taken, only abandoned. It does not depend on title, wealth, or followers. It is the sovereignty of the mind over illusion. When you see clearly, you cease to be manipulated by praise, by fear, by circumstance. You become immovable, not through rigidity, but through comprehension. So think as the strategist, not the spectator. Listen for what power hides, not what it declares. Judge by results, not by rhetoric. And when uncertainty grips you, do not flee it, dissect it. For the man who can remain calm in confusion, who can see order within disorder, is already master of both himself and his fate. To think clearly is to see through the fog of human weakness without despising it. To decide well is to act without the approval of those still lost in it. For clarity is not comfort, it is conquest. And the mind that conquers itself commands the world. Yet clarity is not a permanent state. It is a discipline, a relentless act of rebellion against the natural decay of thought. The mind, left unattended, drifts toward chaos. It seeks comfort in illusions, nostalgia in failure, justification in error. To think clearly, you must constantly strip the mind of its disguises. You must question even your own certainties, for arrogance is the dust that gathers upon the mirror of reason. The ruler who no longer doubts himself is already blind. Every day, the world tries to make you forget yourself through distraction, through outrage, through the intoxication of applause. These are tools of control. For the one who cannot focus, cannot decide, and the one who cannot decide is ruled by whoever decides for him. Clarity, therefore, begins with attention, the ability to look where others refuse, to confront what others evade. Most prefer the soft glow of ignorance to the sharp light of truth. But the ruler cannot afford blindness. He must see even when it hurts. Beware of conviction without examination. The world praises certainty, yet it is often the surest path to ruin. Men march into disaster under banners of righteousness, believing their cause absolves their blindness. True clarity requires doubt, not paralysis, but the humility to test one's vision against consequence. It is better to hesitate before truth than to rush toward illusion. The clear mind understands that every decision is made in fog. You will never have all the facts, never know every motive, never foresee every outcome. But the wise ruler moves forward regardless, guided not by perfect knowledge, but by disciplined intuition, a reason sharpened through failure, a foresight tempered by loss. For clarity is not omniscience. It is mastery of uncertainty. You must also learn the difference between appearance and reality. Every state, every company, every institution is a theater where the actors mistake their masks for their faces. Power thrives in performance. Yet beneath the applause, beneath the ceremonies, lies the machinery of control, fear, reward, perception. The clear thinker does not become a spectator of this play. He becomes its director. He does not despise appearances, he weaponizes them. Do not attempt to remove deception from the world. Learn to use it with precision. Truth without timing is ineffective. Honesty, when unguarded, can become self-sabotage. There are moments when concealment serves justice better than confession. The ruler who speaks all he knows will soon have nothing left but regret. Therefore, the art of clarity includes the art of silence. Still, silence alone is not enough. To think clearly, you must also speak strategically. Words are not mere tools of communication. They are instruments of command. Every phrase you utter shapes perception. Every silence you maintain directs attention. The weak talk to be heard. The wise talk to be understood. The ruler talks to be obeyed. In moments of crisis, clarity must become action. When fear spreads, men cling to whoever appears most certain. Appearances, not truths, stabilize nations. Thus, even if clarity trembles within, its surface must appear unbroken. The ruler may privately wrestle with doubt, but publicly he must project inevitability. Confidence, when disciplined by wisdom, becomes the armor of authority. Learn also the virtue of detachment. The ruler who grows too entangled in affection, revenge, or sentiment loses perspective. Every personal tie is a potential leash. Clarity demands distance, not absence of feeling, but freedom from enslavement by it. To see the field clearly, you must stand above it. You may love, but never let love rule your judgment. You may hate, but never let hate write your commands. Understand that control is not achieved through domination, but through perception. The clearest mind is not the loudest, but the most unreadable. To be unpredictable is to be untouchable. Once others can predict your reasoning, they will learn to exploit it. Thus, true clarity conceals itself behind complexity, simple in purpose, but layered in presentation. The world must never fully see your design, only its results. There will be moments when clarity isolates you. When your mind pierces through illusions that others need to survive, you will feel the chill of solitude. Accept it. Every ruler walks alone at the summit of his own understanding. Companionship belongs to equals. Leadership belongs to those who see farther. The higher you climb, the thinner the air, but also the clearer the view. Do not seek to be understood. Seek to be effective. The ruler's clarity is measured not in how many agree with him, but in how many obey him. You will be accused of coldness, of cruelty, of cynicism. But remember, it is not cruelty to act without delusion. It is cruelty to let the blind lead the blind. Still, clarity must never become cruelty for its own sake. The ruler who loses his sense of proportion becomes a tyrant to himself before he becomes one to others. Wisdom lies in restraint, to know when power should strike and when it should pause. To think clearly is to see not only the line between strength and savagery, but to know precisely when to cross it. Every leader faces a moment when clarity demands a sacrifice, a friend, a belief, an illusion of safety. When that moment comes, do not hesitate. The ruler who flinches before necessity becomes its victim. Fate respects only those who act without apology. History remembers not the merciful, but the decisive. Yet, in private, clarity brings a heavier cost. You will see corruption where others see harmony, deception where others see loyalty. You will understand too much to hate simply, too clearly to love blindly. The clear mind cannot return to innocence. It walks in truth as one walks in shadow, aware, precise, unflinching. Still, there is peace in clarity, for though it isolates, it liberates. It frees you from dependence on opinion, from the tyranny of admiration, from the need to be seen as good. It allows you to act as necessity dictates, not as approval demands. When others move by impulse, you will move by design. When they drown in confusion, you will walk through it as through mist. The goal of clarity is not comfort, but control not of others first, but of oneself. For he who rules his mind can endure exile, betrayal, and ruin without collapse. Power begins there, in the ability to remain steady while all else falters. So, strip yourself of illusion. Burn away sentimentality. Refine your reason until it cuts through deceit like a blade through smoke. For only the clear mind commands fate, while the clouded mind becomes its prey. Think with precision, act with proportion, rule with silence. And when confusion reigns around you, remember the clearest voice is not the loudest, but the one that does not tremble. Clarity, once attained, must be guarded like a fortress, for the world is always at war with the lucid mind. Every system of power, every hierarchy, every marketplace thrives on confusion. The less clearly people think, the more easily they can be led. That is why propaganda succeeds, why ideologies spread like fever, why faith in personalities replaces faith in reason. The ruler must never forget that control over minds begins with control over perception. He who defines reality shapes obedience. He who questions the definition breaks the spell. The clear thinker must therefore learn to read the illusions of the age, its sacred lies, its fashionable hypocrisies, its carefully curated virtues. Every era constructs its own moral theater to mask its hunger for dominance. In one century, men kill in the name of God. In another, in the name of freedom. In ours, perhaps in the name of progress. The language changes. The appetite remains. The ruler who understands this can navigate through dogmas like a sailor through storms, neither worshipping nor despising them, only mastering their winds. Beware of the intoxication of ideology. Nothing clouds reason faster than belief in moral perfection. The most dangerous men are not the wicked, but the convinced, for they no longer see opponents, only heretics. They confuse righteousness with strategy, conviction with competence. Clarity requires that you hold ideas, but never let ideas hold you. Use them as weapons, not as cages. The moment you believe that your cause makes you incapable of error, you have already erred beyond repair. It is not the strong who dominate history, but the lucid, those who can see two truths at once. That man is capable of greatness and corruption, that justice and cruelty can dwell in the same act, that progress is often written in the blood of its believers. To think clearly is to live within paradox without collapsing under it. Weak minds crave simplicity, strong minds endure complexity. The ruler's mind must contain contradictions and remain whole. You will meet those who mistake noise for intellect. They shout opinions as if volume could substitute for vision, but the wise do not argue with the deaf. They act. Debate changes nothing once power has decided. Persuasion is the tool of those without force. Clarity is the weapon of those who command it. To think clearly is to know when words are futile and when silence is fatal. And yet, silence itself is not passive. The silence of the clear mind radiates power. It unsettles the shallow, exposes the dishonest, and commands attention without demand. It is the silence of the strategist before a strike, of the storm before the first lightning. Men will project their fears into it. That is the first lesson of authority. People respect what they cannot read. Every decision, however clear, demands courage, for clarity shows not only the right path, but the cost of walking it. Most turn away when they see the price of truth. The wise accept it without lament, knowing that comfort is the currency of mediocrity. The ruler does not ask whether a choice is painful, but whether it is necessary. He accepts that wisdom and suffering are twins born of the same mother reality. If you wish to see clearly, observe not the words of men, but their reactions. Power reveals itself in the small tremors of fear, envy, and ambition that they try to hide. The tongue lies, the eyes never do. The clear thinker reads the room as a general reads a battlefield, sensing movement before it happens, discerning weakness beneath confidence, hesitation beneath flattery. Every conversation is a negotiation of power. Those who understand this never speak idly. Be wary of loyalty that costs nothing. True loyalty is not declared, it is tested. Men are faithful while they gain. They become treacherous when sacrifice is required. The wise ruler neither demands love nor expects it. He creates systems where obedience aligns with interest. That is the architecture of enduring authority, not devotion, but design. Clarity is not about eliminating uncertainty, but mastering it. The world is an endless web of motives and masks. To demand absolute certainty before acting is to surrender the future to those who act first. The ruler must therefore cultivate a flexible mind, one that adjusts without breaking, that doubts without despairing. When circumstances shift, clarity adapts but never apologizes. Time, too, is an ally to those who see clearly. Most squander it in reaction. The wise use it in anticipation. The impatient demand instant victory. The lucid build inevitability. The world belongs not to the one who strikes first, but to the one who waits for his opponent to exhaust himself. Clarity is endurance disguised as patience. You will learn that even reason must sometimes yield to instinct. For there are moments when calculation freezes, when facts blur into chaos, and only the inner pulse of necessity remains. That pulse is not emotion. It is the distilled memory of every judgment, every mistake, every triumph your mind has ever known. To think clearly in crisis is to trust that instinct not as a feeling, but as trained perception. Do not mistake clarity for calmness. It can burn like fire, sharp and merciless. It reveals what you wished not to see, the weakness of your allies, the selfishness of your friends, the limits of your own virtue. But this fire purifies. Better to face the cruel truth than to live in comforting lies. The ruler who prefers pleasant illusions will always be ruled by those who see beneath them. The clearest minds in history were not saints. They were surgeons of power. They cut through falsehood, not because they enjoyed cruelty, but because they understood that sentimentality is decay. Compassion is not the enemy of clarity, but its servant. It must never guide the blade, only steady the hand. For mercy without control is weakness, and power without conscience is rot. To make better decisions, you must practice seeing beyond consequence into continuity. Every action sets a precedent. Every leniency breeds expectation. Every delay cultivates resistance. The ruler must think not in moments, but in structures, in the invisible architecture of cause and effect that governs empires and households alike. Short-sighted rulers are slaves to their own victories. Far-sighted rulers are architects of their successors. And yet, clarity alone is not enough. Without will, it is paralysis. Without discretion, it is arrogance. Without purpose, it is nihilism. True clarity demands direction, a reason to endure, a vision to defend. For the ruler who sees everything yet believes in nothing becomes the most dangerous fool of all. He sees clearly, but acts aimlessly, and so destroys himself with precision. Therefore, marry vision to clarity. Let the mind see what the heart dares not, but let the heart remind the mind why it sees it all. The art of decision is the union of cold reason and quiet conviction. You must feel enough to act, but never so much that feeling blinds you. The perfect balance is rare, and therein lies the distinction between those who rule and those who serve. One day, when the noise of the world subsides and the weight of every choice you've made presses upon you, you will understand that clarity was never about intellect alone. It was about courage, the courage to think honestly, even when truth endangers comfort, reputation, and peace. To think clearly is the final rebellion against chaos, the last defense of sovereignty. For in the end, all leadership, all power, all conquest begins and ends within the mind. He who commands his thoughts commands his destiny. He who cannot becomes the instrument of another's will. And so, as the centuries turn and empires rise and fall, one truth remains. The clearest mind does not follow history, it writes it. Consider the ruler who hesitates before a divided council. Each advisor speaks with conviction, yet each represents a private interest disguised as loyalty. One urges compromise, another demands aggression, a third warns of delay. The ruler listens, not for their words, but for their motives. Who gains from peace, who profits from war, who fears exposure. He watches their faces when silence falls. The one who looks away reveals more than the one who speaks. The ruler makes his decision not from their counsel, but from their fear. This is clarity, the ability to see the battlefield, even when standing in a room. In another court, a prince inherits a nation sick with corruption. His first instinct is to punish, to cleanse the rot through spectacle. Yet the clear thinker restrains the impulse. He understands that purges terrify not only the guilty, but the useful. He begins instead with reformation disguised as reward. He promotes competence publicly, isolates greed privately, and lets fear do the pruning. Within a year, loyalty is restored not by force, but by perception. Those who once conspired now police themselves. This is not mercy, it is design. Clarity thrives in disguise. The most effective decisions are often invisible. Imagine a leader who wishes to curb the influence of a rival too powerful to confront directly. Instead of accusation, he extends opportunity, a diplomatic mission, a public honor, a flattering exile. The rival departs willingly, carrying his own irrelevance like a medal. The crowd sees generosity, the ruler sees removal. The move is bloodless, the result absolute. Clarity achieves with elegance what brute power destroys with spectacle. There is a general who once commanded an army greater than his nation's treasury could sustain. The accountants warned him of bankruptcy, his allies of mutiny. But he saw what they could not, that the war's true currency was morale, not gold. He promised victory, exaggerated resources, and allowed rumor to sustain the illusion of abundance. By the time the truth was discovered, he had already won. Clarity is not always honesty. Sometimes it is the mastery of belief. Or take the statesman negotiating peace after years of war. His enemies demand concession. His people demand revenge. He sees neither as absolute. Instead, he frames compromise as triumph. He allows the enemy to save face publicly while stripping them of advantage privately. He announces victory at home, peace abroad, and lets history confuse the two. The clear mind does not cling to appearances of justice, it engineers them. Even in small matters, clarity manifests through proportion. A merchant, faced with a dishonest partner, could expose him, risking scandal, or ignore him, inviting repetition. Instead, he stages an opportunity for betrayal and records it quietly. The partner's greed condemns him without accusation. The merchant retains his reputation and his power. Truth, once armed with evidence, needs no defense. Clarity also demands the ability to use emotion against itself. A ruler facing rebellion does not suppress anger, he redirects it. He gives the masses a lesser enemy, a foreign adversary, or a corrupt minister. The fury that once burned toward him becomes a weapon in his hands. The rebellion transforms into unity, and the same people who cursed him yesterday die for him today. The wise do not extinguish fire, they contain it. In another time, a commander was betrayed by his closest ally. Instead of immediate vengeance, he praised the traitor publicly, increasing his visibility. The man, believing himself safe, relaxed his guard and revealed his network. Only then did the commander strike swiftly, surgically, without spectacle. By the next dawn, the conspiracy dissolved. Clarity knows that revenge served cold feeds not hatred but order. Sometimes clarity hides in patience. A ruler aware of a coming crisis may choose to appear indifferent. When famine whispers across the land, he does not announce panic. He begins quietly stockpiling grain, dismissing complaints as rumors. By the time hunger reaches the capital, he alone possesses supply and gratitude. He becomes savior by foresight, not by chance. The crowd calls it providence. He knows it was preparation. A wise minister once said, "When you cannot control the storm, control the narrative." A government facing failure in war shifts focus to heroism. Defeat becomes sacrifice. Loss becomes legacy. The people mourn, but remain obedient. The clear mind understands that perception governs more than truth, it governs history. Those who manage perception command the memory of nations. In the private sphere, clarity reveals itself in subtle maneuver. A diplomat, surrounded by deceit, refuses to match it with dishonor. He keeps his word when it costs him little, breaks it only when necessity demands, and ensures that even betrayal appears as duty. Thus, his enemies distrust his intentions but respect his consistency. Fear without hatred, the purest form of control. The art of decision-making is visible even in solitude. Imagine a leader walking through the ruins of his failed policy. He does not curse fate. He notes each misstep where emotion clouded reason, where pride silenced warning, where loyalty blinded foresight. He writes these lessons not for guilt, but for governance. For the mind that studies its own defeat will never be surprised by it again. Clarity also requires the courage to use imperfection. A law poorly written may still serve its purpose if its ambiguity benefits the ruler. A rival's arrogance may be useful as a lightning rod for public anger. A mistake, once framed as strategy, can strengthen authority. The wise do not erase flaws, they reassign their meaning. There was a time when an empire stood on the edge of collapse, its armies stretched thin, its provinces restless. A new leader rose, not through inheritance, but through foresight. He reduced taxes in some regions while increasing them in others, provoking resentment strategically. The dissatisfied rebelled, but in doing so revealed themselves. He crushed them decisively and declared stability restored. Order was born from disorder, because he understood that clarity is not peace, but controlled tension. To think clearly is also to predict behavior by studying incentives. When you wish to understand a man, do not ask what he believes, observe what he fears to lose. When you wish to manipulate a crowd, do not argue with their ideas, alter their rewards. The farmer does not debate with his ox. He directs it through hunger and comfort. Clarity reduces complexity to pattern, then uses pattern to command outcome. Every example of true clarity carries the same principle: dominance through understanding, not through excess. The general who spares the city saves more than lives he inherits loyalty. The ruler who punishes corruption selectively gains obedience from fear and admiration alike. The strategist who lets others claim credit secures influence that outlasts titles. The clear mind measures power not by possession, but by leverage. Clarity turns weakness into camouflage. When surrounded by stronger rivals, the wise act as if content to serve. They flatter power while preparing to replace it. History remembers such men not as cowards, but as survivors. Pretended humility has overthrown more kings than armies. When ambition hides beneath deference, it strikes unseen. And still, clarity must evolve. What preserved you today may betray you tomorrow. The ruler who adapts survives. The one who clings to old wisdom becomes its relic. The mind must remain fluid, never bound by one strategy, one doctrine, one illusion of control. For power is not owned. It is rented from time, and time is a ruthless landlord. So learn from the patterns of history. The clearest minds were never prophets. They were observers. They did not see the future. They recognized its echo in the past. The fall of a kingdom, the rise of a tyrant, the birth of a revolution, these are not new phenomena, only new disguises of the same truth. To think clearly is to read repetition in disguise and act before it reveals itself again. In the end, clarity is not the absence of confusion, it is dominion over it. The world will never simplify itself for you. People will continue to betray, to scheme, to dream. The wise ruler does not curse this chaos. He shapes it, bends it, and turns it into rhythm. For those who think clearly, even disorder becomes an instrument, and every storm, once understood, can be steered. To think clearly and make better decisions, one must transcend reaction and learn the rhythm of reason itself. Clarity is not the product of intelligence, but of alignment, the alignment between perception, instinct, and necessity. The ruler who truly sees does not analyze endlessly, nor does he act blindly. He observes until patterns reveal themselves, then moves in accordance with inevitability. To think clearly is to act in harmony with what must happen, not in resistance to it. The mind that makes sound decisions operates from stillness, not noise. It is not distracted by the multitude of options, nor seduced by the comfort of certainty. It moves through ambiguity with composure, because it understands that truth is rarely immediate. It emerges through patience. Most people fail not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack stillness. They confuse activity with strategy, motion with progress. Clarity demands withdrawal from this frenzy. To think as one standing above the field rather than running through it. Every decision reveals the architecture of one's mind. Those who think clearly design their choices with structure, each thought a pillar, each judgment a weight-bearing beam. They do not decorate decisions with sentiment, nor disguise weakness with optimism. They build them as one builds fortresses, deliberately, efficiently, without ornament. The mind that seeks clarity must therefore abandon the habit of decorating thought. Beauty has no place in the realm of decision, only accuracy does. To think clearly is to recognize that every decision is an investment of power. Power, like capital, must be allocated where it returns stability, not applause. Those who spend their influence on pleasing others become bankrupt of authority. Those who invest it in systems that reinforce order multiply their reach. Thus, decision-making is not the act of choosing, it is the art of conserving control. The mind that rules well measures consequence, not comfort. It does not ask, "What will this make me feel?" but "What will this cause to unfold?" Emotions can be managed, outcomes cannot. The wise therefore place feeling in the service of foresight. They feel deeply, but they decide coldly. This distinction separates the governor from the governed. Clarity also demands hierarchy within thought. Every mind is a council of voices: fear, pride, desire, duty. In most men, they argue without end, and the loudest prevails. But in the ruler's mind, order reigns. Emotion presents its case, reason judges it, will executes it. That is the invisible structure behind every decisive act. To make better decisions, one must learn not to silence these voices, but to discipline them. Decision is the bridge between vision and reality. Those who think clearly know that hesitation is erosion. Time dissolves opportunity faster than error does. Thus, once reason has spoken, will must act. The ruler who delays his verdict invites the world to decide for him. Indecision is the first betrayal of authority, and every betrayal of authority leads to the loss of command. To think clearly is to know that all judgment is partial. Perfection in choice is an illusion. What matters is coherence. The decision must align with the structure of one's greater purpose, not with the approval of the moment. Every choice that strengthens direction, even if flawed, reinforces control. Every choice that seeks comfort over principle fractures it. Clarity, therefore, is the art of maintaining integrity across imperfection. In decision, proportion is everything. One must know when to act with subtlety and when to strike with finality. Minor matters require grace, vital ones require force. Confusion arises when the ruler reverses these, when he crushes the trivial and negotiates with the existential. To think clearly is to preserve scale, to treat small things as small and great things as great. The clear mind also knows when to end deliberation. Every thought must eventually bow to outcome. The moment reason has given its verdict, the thinker must cease questioning. Reflection after decision is sabotage. It weakens conviction and dissolves unity between thought and action. The wise make decisions as one draws a blade cleanly, without tremor, without looking back. The secret of clarity lies in detachment from the need to be right. Those obsessed with correctness fear risk and thus surrender initiative. The ruler knows that control is not achieved through perfect accuracy, but through consistent direction. He adjusts as he moves. Precision grows from persistence, not paralysis. To make better decisions, one must accept the solitude of judgment. The burden of command cannot be shared without being diluted. Counsel can inform, but it cannot decide. The final act of thought must be singular, for collective clarity is a contradiction. Vision requires one center. Thus, to think clearly is to bear isolation with composure, to find certainty not in consensus, but in coherence. The clear thinker does not demand that the world obey his logic. He adapts his logic to the world. He understands that decision is not about bending reality to one's will, but about maneuvering within it. The strategist who waits for ideal conditions never acts. The realist who acts within imperfection bends chaos into advantage. Clarity is not the removal of unpredictability, it is its command. To think clearly is to think forward. Every decision must anticipate its decay, for all outcomes rot with time. The wise plan for replacement as they act. They build exit routes into every strategy, contingencies into every success. Thus, their clarity does not perish with their fortune. Their decisions live beyond their presence because they were designed for continuity, not applause. The highest form of clarity is foresight, the ability to see the seed of consequence before it sprouts. It is not prophecy, but pattern recognition. The mind that trains itself to observe repetition becomes immune to surprise. For all things, even those that seem unprecedented, are but variations of the eternal ambition, fear, envy, and desire, rearranged into new costume. Clarity, therefore, sees the universal beneath the temporary. To make better decisions is to abandon the illusion of control over outcome. The ruler cannot dictate what follows, only influence the forces that shape it. Thus, he does not cling to the result, he focuses on the execution. Perfection in process guarantees endurance, where perfection in result guarantees disappointment. Clarity is mastery of the controllable and indifference to the rest. Thinking clearly requires balance between reflection and instinct. Reflection ensures accuracy. Instinct ensures momentum. One without the other leads to ruin. The thinker becomes a prisoner of his theories, or the actor becomes a servant of his impulses. The ruler must merge both to reflect without delay and to act without hesitation. In that union lies the precision of command. Ultimately, to think clearly and make better decisions is to cultivate inner dominion, the sovereignty of mind that cannot be bribed by emotion, disarmed by flattery, or blinded by haste. It is to live with one's intellect as one's compass, and with necessity as one's horizon. When clarity governs reason and reason governs will, every decision, whether victorious or tragic, becomes an instrument of order. For the purpose of thought is not comfort, but command. To think clearly is to govern reality before it governs you. To decide wisely is to align your mind with inevitability, until fate itself seems to move in your direction. And when all else fades, loyalty, fortune, even strength, clarity remains, not as a tool, but as the final mark of power. The calm certainty that every choice you made was your own. Clarity, when perfected, becomes more than a method, it becomes a state of being. It is the mind's emancipation from distortion, a posture of calm amidst the unending noise of events. The one who thinks clearly ceases to chase approval, ceases to fear uncertainty, and begins to move with a quiet inevitability. Every act becomes deliberate, every silence purposeful. He no longer seeks to persuade or to please. He seeks only to perceive, to decide, and to endure. The ruler who masters clarity begins to perceive time differently. He does not react to the moment, he arranges moments. The world may rush in panic, but his decisions arrive with the rhythm of strategy, not emotion. He does not ask what tomorrow will bring. He asks what must be done today to make tomorrow inevitable. For clear thought transforms time from a threat into a servant. When clarity reigns, doubt becomes an ally, not an enemy. The clear mind does not resist uncertainty. It learns from it. It sees hesitation not as weakness, but as warning, a signal to re-examine motive, not to retreat from action. It understands that doubt, when disciplined, refines reason. The man who has never questioned himself has never ruled himself. In clarity there is peace, but not comfort. For to think clearly is to see beyond the illusions that protect ordinary minds. You begin to recognize manipulation in affection, strategy in praise, ambition in friendship. You no longer hate it. You understand it. You stop expecting purity from the world and start extracting purpose from it. Such understanding is both liberation and exile. The art of decision then becomes simple. Remove the unnecessary, align with necessity, act without delay. The mind that has achieved this precision no longer fights with itself. It moves as one body, one intention, one law. From that stillness comes speed, from that simplicity, control. The world, in all its chaos, becomes readable, not predictable, but decipherable, and that deciphering is the essence of mastery. True clarity leaves no residue of doubt after decision. Once the verdict is given, the mind closes the door and moves forward. The past becomes data, not regret. Regret serves no ruler. The one who regrets seeks to rewrite time. The one who decides learns from it and builds anew. Clarity walks with time, not against it. In the end, to think clearly and make better decisions is not merely to survive, it is to govern the very conditions of survival. It is to act in such a way that even chaos bends around your intention. The world rewards those who appear lucky, but luck is only clarity meeting opportunity. For when vision pierces illusion and decision moves without hesitation, destiny itself becomes an instrument of will. Thus, the highest power belongs not to those who command armies or fortunes, but to those who command perception, those whose minds remain unclouded, whose judgments remain unbroken, whose thoughts move like steel beneath the fall. For when all illusions have perished and every mask has fallen, what remains is not chance, not hope, not faith, but the final strength of clarity, the ability to see, to decide, and to act as though nothing else exists. Clarity is the final privilege of those who have endured confusion without surrendering to it. It is the quiet wisdom that emerges when illusions have been burned away and only necessity remains. The ruler who reaches this state no longer seeks control through fear or praise. He governs through comprehension. He knows that the mind is the first territory of any empire, and whoever commands it commands all else. To think clearly is to move beyond victory and defeat. Both are temporary. Both are distractions. The clear thinker measures success not by outcome, but by precision of thought, by the consistency between purpose and action. He does not curse loss, nor worship gain. He sees both as tides in the same ocean, inevitable and fleeting. His calm is not indifference, but dominion. When clarity becomes one's nature, deception no longer threatens. Lies lose their power, for they depend on confusion to survive. The clear mind sees through them effortlessly, recognizing in every falsehood the fingerprints of fear. It stands unmoved amid persuasion, immune to the noise of opinion. For truth, to such a mind, is not a principle, it is a pattern, visible to those who dare to see. And as the world descends into endless noise, moral outrage, false virtue, desperate certainty, clarity becomes rebellion. To remain lucid in a time of hysteria is the rarest form of power. The ruler who can think calmly while others drown in sentiment becomes inevitable. His restraint is mistaken for mystery, his patience for genius. In truth, he simply sees what others refuse to see. So remember, the greatest strength is not in domination, but in discernment. The mightiest empire begins not in conquest, but in comprehension. The clearest mind bends the world by understanding it, and the ruler who governs his thoughts will outlast the ruler who governs men. Clarity is the end of illusion, the death of confusion, the birth of sovereignty. It is the moment when thought becomes command, and command becomes law. To think clearly is to stand unmoved before chaos, and to act as if destiny itself has become your instrument. And when all power fades, when the noise of the world collapses into silence, one truth will remain: the empire of the clear mind endures.